Hi, Rabbi Majeski. And my friend, she's here.
Simcha, you came from Chiddush Adar.
Yeah, I have a week off.
You really have it all worked out.
And yesterday, my twin sister came to America.
Who?
My twin sister.
Oh, wow, very nice.
You're gonna meet her, she's gonna come.
Okay, we'll start with the Kapitel Tilim. In the schools of the Tilim, yesterday we had a Hayom Yom. It says the power of, is it yesterday? Today, the power of Tilim, that it breaks through all barriers. You should see the complete, total victory in Eretz Yisrael and the total defeat of our enemies, and every hostage and every soldier come home gesundheit and freude. Lam natzeach mizmor David. Yanchu Adonai b'yom tzara yisagev choshen elhei Yaakov. Yishlach ezecha mikodesh u'metzion sadeka. Yizkar kol menchesecha ve'eloscha yidashne selo. Yitin lecha chel vavecha v'chol atzoscha yimaleh. V'ranina b'shuasecha v'b'shem Eloheinu nidgir. Yimaleh Adonai kol mishalesecha. Ato yedaiti ki Yishia Adonai Mashiach. V'anehu mishmei kotshei. V'guris yesha yemine. Eile b'rechev v'eile b'susim. V'nachnu b'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir. Heima kol v'nafalu v'nachnu kamnu v'naseidah. Adonai Yishia HaMelech Adonai v'yom karev.
Wait. Oh, is there? Breakfast is coming.
Okay. Today's the 28th of Shvat. That's not the Hayom Yom I was thinking of. Oh, that was on the 24th of Shvat. Okay, what? It was on Shabbos, 24th of Shvat. What? Shabbos Mevarchim. That's probably why I just put in there, yeah. I don't think they have it here, but this saying of the Tzemach Tzedek, that the power of Tehillim is connected to a story. Let's see, we don't have a regular siddur here, right? Siddur, Tehillim. Yeah. You're using it? No, I just want to read to you briefly. It's sort of a heavenly story that happened with Tzemach Tzedek. The Friedrich Rebbe said one day he suddenly reminded himself about something which his father told him 10 years earlier. It was on Rosh Chodesh Elul, and his father said that when you get older, I want to tell you a story. And he forgot about the whole thing. So then the Friedrich Rebbe came to the Rebbe Rashab, and he didn't know how to say it. The Rebbe Rashab saw that he wanted to ask something, so he told him, I see you want to say something, what did you want to say? Then he told you promised me a story, you never told it to me, and I forgot totally about it. Not only that, when he remembered, he forgot again. He remembered again, and he forgot again, he remembered again. So then the Rebbe Rashab told him the same thing happened to me. My grandfather told me once to tell me a story, And also the same story that I forgot it and I reminded again. In other words, this is what the Rebbe Rashab told the Friedrich Rebbe. About the Rebbe Marash. Marash told him the story. And then finally he told him what he wanted to tell him. He told him this idea that we now know as something very simple. In those days it wasn't so known. That on Rosh Chodesh Elul, every day of the month, you say 3 extra Kapitach Tilim. And then you say a few before the Kol Nidre, before going to sleep, and all together you'll finish the whole Tilim by the end of Yom Kippur. And he said to him, this is something which is from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov received it from his Rebbe, Achia Shiloni. And then he told him the story that I want to tell you about the power of Tilim. And he said that it was one year that the Tzemach Tzedek called in his oldest son, his name is Baruch Shalom. That's the son of the Tzemach Tzedek, that is the ancestor of our Rebbe. And he said to him that he wants them to say Tilim. They should make a minyan. They should say Tilim every day, starting from the 4th hour, which means 3 o'clock in the morning. And the minyan should say Tilim, the whole Tilim. And they should say it every day until I tell you to stop. And nobody should know that you're doing this. And then after a few weeks, first of all, they started Tilim right away. It was on the 25th day of Tishrei. And then a number of weeks later, 3 months later about, he told them to stop. And he said, if you want, you can continue, but from my end, you can stop. And the Rebbe's secretary said that the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek would also be saying Tilim at the same time. And he saw that he put certain monies into tzedakah, different coins, selected coins. And they were wondering why he said to say Tilim. One opinion was because that year was a leap year. And a leap year, you need special bracha. Another opinion was that in the year Tafrei Ches, that was the year 1848, that there was a case that was written in certain places that this is the year Mashiach is going to come. And years of those kind of years, you also need special bracha. But they really didn't know why. They were just assuming that maybe it's connected to that. Yutas Kislev, the Tzemach Tzedek, was very, very happy and besimcha. He said a maimer 3 times, very unusual. And then Hanukkah time, they brought, for the first time, the Likutei Torah was printed. And then Chavdalah Tevis, which means almost a month later, there was a Fabrengen. And by the Fabrengen, they were singing the Alter Rebbe's Nigun. And they finished singing the Alter Rebbe's Nigun, and then the Tzemach Tzedek said like this: on the first night of Rosh Hashanah, I saw that there was Rahman al-Islam, some sort of a kitrug, which means a Shemayim, a ruling against Yidden, and specifically Yidden that are Torah observant Jews, that God forbid something would happen. And I saw my grandfather, rather I wanted to see my grandfather, I could not see him, the Alter Rebbe. But I did see my father-in-law, which is the Mittel Rebbe. And he told me that the Gezerah is very severe, but it wasn't signed yet. And therefore you have to daven and do everything you can, but not to publicize it, because by publicizing it, it might do damage. That was Rosh Hashanah. Simchas Torah, when we sang the Alter Rebbe's Nigun, right before the benching, I saw my grandfather. And he told me that Keishel Bracha, when you make the bracha on the kos, you're supposed to pick it up 1 tefach from the table. But Tilim is the Keishel Bracha of David HaMelech. That brings everything else up 1 tefach, and that has the power to break any kind of kitrug, any kind of gezer, any decree. And he said to me then, arrange, no one should know that every morning, earlier, before dawn, not later than the 4th hour, which is 3 o'clock in the morning, there should be a minyan saying Tilim for the next 53 days. And you'll see that it'll become null and void. And that's what happened. And then the Tzemach Tzedek said, if you would know the power of Tillim, what they can do, you'd be saying them all the time. And you should know that Tillim has the power to break all barriers. It goes up and higher without anything blocking it. The words of Tillim go before Hashem's throne, and they accomplish things b'chesed barachman. That's where it comes from this story.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, lady. Came just in time.
I love this traffic, but I'm waiting to you. Okay,
You got all the red lights.
Okay. Now we will continue the Maimer. So we are, I guess, Oizvov. We need to go over what we learned yesterday, or is there some questions? I'm sure you're thinking about it the whole day and the whole night. So do you have any questions, or should we just start book? Okay, so what we said yesterday was that at this end of conclusion of this ois, he explains that now we have the understanding of the reason why they choose the king over the ministers is because because they want the melech, not because of the benefits. No, we're in the middle of Ois. We started Oizvah, we're in the middle, right? We're on page 224, 225. That because of, not because of the benefits, but because we want the melech. And like it says, Chelki Avaya Omra Nafshi, which means Hashem and me, we are one. And therefore I choose Hashem, nothing else. But then he asked, so then why does it say that everything else is temporary? Everything else is temporary just means to bring out and indicate. Therefore, everything else is not godly, it's not emes, and therefore, even though it's abundance, and even though it comes easier, I don't want it. And godliness, that's something which is permanent, even though it's not so much, it's less, it's limited, it's measured. And it also comes with avodah, that you have to be mevatel yourself, but that's what I want. Then the Rebbe asked the question, this is where we left off yesterday. On one hand, it appears to be that there's some sort of a logical thought process that leads to the conclusion that I should choose Hashem over everything else. On the other hand, it appears to be that it's something which is not related to logic. It's just I and Hashem are one, and that's all I want. So how do we reconcile both things? Is it a logical thought process that leads to this conclusion, or is it something which is not seichel? Because by saying everything else is temporary, this is this, that means there's a logic to it. And when you say Chelki Havaya Omra Nafshi, my soul is Hashem, you're not going into any kind of logical explanation. You're saying that's it. Hashem is and me are one, and I can't choose anything else. Then you don't have to bring out the point of permanent, not permanent. It's just I and Hashem are one, and that's all. Question is clear? Clear? Yeah. Okay. I ask the question, I get the answer. Okay. The Kudas Habir was that. The explanation is page 225. This is a very deep, beautiful explanation. The Seichel Ha'adam, Kamei Shehu Mitzad Atzmai, logic itself in its own right, Machriach Lirtzeis Rak Bazeh Sheteiv Loi. This is something which compels a person to choose that which is good for me. That's the way Seichel operates. The fact that the nations of the world choose the officers and the ministers, they can also understand that the Melech is the most important. He's the primary one here, because everything else is temporary. The Melech is permanent. The Melech appoints everybody else they could also understand the value of the king over the ministers. Like the Gemara says, if someone would tell you that the non-Jewish world has Torah, don't believe them. But if someone would tell you that the non-Jewish world has Chokhmah, you could believe them. In other words, Torah is something godly that wasn't given to them. But Chokhmah, they also have Chokhmah. So besides intelligence alone, wouldn't they understand that it's better to choose the Melech, who's the primary person, rather than the ministers, who are just being appointed by the king? So what compels them to choose otherwise? The answer is Kiliyez B'Bchinas Yesh, being that fundamentally every person is a Yesh, is a Metzias, and therefore as a Metzias, I want only something that'll sustain my Metzias, strengthen my Metzias. I don't want to give up my Metzias. Like, what is the reason in general why without Torah people by nature are going to be more selfish? Torah teaches us to give tzedakah, to give from my time, to give to Hashem, to give to other people. What is it that naturally a person is selfish? Very simple, because naturally a person is a yesh. A yesh means it's all about me, and therefore I don't want to give away. I don't want to be less of a tziyus than I am. And by giving away my money, giving away my opportunity, I'm becoming less. So that's against the nature of yesh. And therefore, einam reitzim levater ala te'eles, knowing that I'm going to have to give up those benefits. They don't want to give up the benefits, shielem aideshe kabel masorim, the benefits they're going to get by receiving from Klippa, because we don't want to give away. And what about a yid? So next page, 226. V'zeh b'Yisrael yeshna hakara. The fact that a yid does have the recognition shetzarach levater ala te'eles v'amitziyah shalahem v'livchar b'lakus u'mitzad haneshama. A yid would also have the same problem. We're human, and being a human, we have a nefesh bahamis, and normally I'm a yesh, and therefore I don't want to give up my mitzias, my existence, and I'll do everything. Just like a person will do everything for their survival in general, so too would a person give up everything for every detail of their survival. Anything I could have for myself, I want for myself. And in a sense, if I give up a little bit of myself, it's no different than giving up a lot of myself. I'm giving away of myself. The reason why we don't go that direction, or we are able not to go that direction, is because of the neshama. Being that the neshama is one essence with Hashem, which means that the choice that I choose Hashem is, of course, in essence, my neshama is connected to Hashem. And therefore, that's my essence and what my essence wants. I don't want to be disconnected. The Bechira Zu, page 227, this choice, the fact that I choose Hashem is not because I see the benefits in Hashem, and because I see the greatness of Hashem, but mitzad, this reason that the king is permanent or not permanent, it's an essential connection on the core level of my essence and Hashem's essence are one. This has an effect on the way my thought process will go. I want to compare this to another thing. We learned Tanya, and this comes up very often in Chassidus, but it's in Tanya in chapter 18 and 19, that every Yid has the power of Mesiras Nefesh, to give up life for Hashem. The Alter Rebbe says, to give up your life for Hashem, that is something which comes from a place which is above Seichel. Because who else would give up the life for Hashem? So one can ask, why is it above Seichel? It could make sense logically too. If you believe, the famous story with the Frierdiker Rebbe, that this little toy could only intimidate someone who has one world and two gods. You have one God and two worlds, you're not intimidated. So here's a person that is standing in front of someone who's threatening him. If he doesn't worship Avodah Zarah, he's going to, God forbid, take away his life. So it could make sense logically. life in this world is just 70, 80, 90, 120 years. If I don't do Avodah Zarah, I'll have something eternal. If God forbid I do Avodah Zarah, I'm going to lose something eternal and give it up for something which is just for a few years. So it makes perfect sense.
It's still going against the person's nature.
So what the Alter Rebbe says is, first of all, we see when people gave up their lives, there wasn't much meditating going on. It was an emotional time. And it's not that they meditated and they were thinking the greatness of Hashem and how much I'm going to give up and have. They don't think that way. It was something which you just saw, that people were determined to not do anything against Torah, against Hashem, and they're ready to give up their lives, and they screamed out Shema Yisrael. Second of all, a lot of the people that gave up their lives were simple Jews who didn't even have the deep understanding of Olam Haba and what's going to be in the world to come. So that's not where they were going. But the Alter Rebbe doesn't say that practically or technically they didn't think. He says it's something which has to come from a place which is above logic. Why? There is a logic to it. Yes, we see that people did it even without the logic. But there is a logic to it. Why do we say that in essence this comes from a place which is above logic? It could make sense that I won't give up something which is eternal for something which is just temporary. Again, if a person doesn't believe in Olam Haba, doesn't believe in Tchias HaMeisim, that's a different problem. But if they do believe, then it makes perfect sense. So the answer is something which we had in the previous Maimorim, and a very, very fundamental point to always have in mind with everything and anything we do, and that is that the human nature is, like it says here, I want for myself, and especially the desire to live. That comes from the essence. And a person will do everything and anything. We see that, God forbid, when a person's life is in danger, then they'll do things that they normally could never do. It's like certain keiches come out which are never there, and they're able to jump distances and bend bars and do things they would never, because they want to survive. Is the strongest desire in a person is the desire for survival. That will have subconsciously an effect on my thought process, that my seichel will produce such logic that will make perfect sense to me that I don't give up my life. Just like the idea of sheikhad. Well, we always talk about sheikhad, that you're not allowed to take bribe. And bribe doesn't necessarily mean that someone gives you money and said, make sure to distort the judgment in my benefit. Bribe means even if I take a gift and it's without any intention, or the other person did a favor. Remember we spoke about the Gemara that this person was traveling to be the Rav, to be the Rav of Bedin Torah. And then when he got off the boat, someone stretched out his hand and he helped him off the boat onto shore. And then the next day when he saw him in the room, that this is the money he's supposed to judge, he said, I'm disqualified. Yesterday you did a little favor for me. You helped me off the boat. I'm disqualified. So what are you afraid? A tzaddik like that is afraid that he's going to distort the judgment because he did a favor to him? And the answer is, once this person did that favor to me, and there's something in my brain that's like a little bit more leaning towards that person, I can't trust my own judgment, that my brain might come to the conclusion, not because pure logic, but because of that connection. So how much more so when the issue at hand is, I want to be alive, that has an effect on my seichel, and seichel will produce the most brilliant ideas why I shouldn't give up my life, and I should better do the other things rather than giving up my life. And it'll make sense, I'll be seichel. So what the Rebbe is saying is the fact that the seichel makes sense, that we should give up all the benefits, and we should give everything up. Naturally, we wouldn't go there, because naturally seichel wants everything for itself. And therefore, seichel will find reasons and explanations that it's much better, from a spiritual perspective, it's better to connect to the ministers. But because on a deeper level, and deeper inside we have that essential connection to Hashem, that will guide my seichel to go in the right direction, not to deviate from the emes. Yeah?
So what it's saying is that the only reason why it can make sense in our seichel is because it comes from the emotion first.
Right.
So if you were to try to explain it, why makes sense not to make sense to someone who doesn't believe, no matter what you say, they're not going to get it because if they don't have that emotional yearning to do that.
Someone who doesn't believe, you're saying?
Yeah, you can never make sense you can never explain it to them that it makes sense with their
Yeah, it won't be able to make sense to them, that's true. But the fact that they're ready to give up the life is because it's coming from a place that doesn't make sense.
Right.
But I'm saying if there would be somebody that it would make sense to them, it's because deep down, in other words, if it makes sense to give up your life, the real reason why it makes sense is because there's something deeper that connects me and that doesn't allow my seichel to deviate. But seichel on its own would definitely deviate to find an explanation that it's better not to give up my life.
Right.
There's a long story, not for now, it's more Malav Malka's story, but it's a long story with someone. And the end of the story is it was a Rav, and he was arrested with false accusation. But at the end of the story, what happens is that somebody comes to him. It was actually his verdict was that he has to be executed. And then the priest comes to him and says, if you are ready to convert, then I could cancel your judgment and you'll be able to go free. You have 3 days to make a decision. And he said, what are you talking about? Convert a rabbi out of your mind? No way. And when the priest goes away, he starts thinking to himself, if chas v'shalom they do what they want to do, who's going to gain anything from that? If I pretend that I'm really converting and then I, keep living my life as a Jew, I can go back to my learning. I can go back to my community. I can guide them. I'll take care of them. Right now, a lot of problems. People stop learning since I'm in jail. People stop davening with the minyan while I'm in jail. And he starts making all sorts of accounts how much he can contribute so much more to Yiddishkeit if he'll allow himself to live than the other way. Who's going to gain anything if Gas v'Shalom he gets killed? And the Seichel started to say to him, his Seichel started to dictate to him that there's actually more of a benefit for Hashem and for Torah and for mitzvahs and for Yiddishkeit that he does convert temporarily, at least outwardly. Then he said, no, Chas v'Shalom, I can't do that. He's going back and forth and back and forth, back and forth. Till finally he made the right decision. But what I'm saying is there is a way that the brain will find logic. And that's why we see a lot of people who do things that are really so out of line and so corrupt. And yet in their minds, it makes perfect sense that they're doing the right thing. Why? Because there's something there that they want so much that's compelling them. So that has influence on the seichel to justify and rationalize that what I want is the right thing, is a good thing. Yep.
Does this fall into the category of having specific Yitzhar? The Yitzhar knows how to get used to it.
Of course, yeah. So that's what it is. Meaning, have all sorts of reasons and explanations to do something which is really the opposite, but it looks like it's a chassidish, it's a good thing to do. Yeah. In other words, because deep down I have that connection that's deeper than logic, this causes shagama seichel, that the logic also recognizes the mekiva shalikuso emes, being that godliness is emes, shechai v'kayim b'kiyim nitzchi, and Hashem is eternal. Malkolem is chalev. That means He's the epitome of emes. He should forgo what he wants personally and choose Hashem. But at the end of the day, he's not really giving up. He's actually becoming much stronger because he's connecting to Hashem who's eternal rather than connecting to himself, which is separate from Hashem, and that's much weaker and that's temporary. Okay, so now we came to another level on the chart. The first level was that he chooses Hashem because of the benefits. This level is that he chooses Hashem because his essence is connected to Hashem, not even because of the benefits. Which one is this? This must be number 6. Let's go back to that chart on page 144. Where was it? No. There was the chart. 44. On page 44. The number 5 is choosing Hashem because it's logical. And Hashem is eternal and everything else is temporary. Number 5 is choosing Hashem. The choice is purely logical. That's number 5.
What's the difference between 4 and 5?
I'm looking, trying to understand what this guy wrote here. Let me see again. Number 3 is choosing Hashem for the benefits. Okay. Number 4 is choosing Hashem because it's emes. Number 5 is choosing Hashem because it's logical. The choice is purely logical. No, something's fishy here. Yeah. Number 4.
You said last time is someone doesn't want to deal with the impure. They don't want to deal with
Number 4 really doesn't belong here. Number 4 doesn't fit in. After 3 should be number 5 and then number 6. Number 5 is choosing Hashem because it's logical. Number 6 is choosing Hashem really because it's coming from the essence of the neshama, and that's what makes the logic. That's what makes it logical. The soul choice is only channeled through the seichel. Sorry for confusing you. Okay. Let's go back now to Ois Zion, the 7th Ois. Okay, so here we are going into different levels of understanding why choose a king over the ministers. And ultimately, there's a way of explaining it because of the benefits, and the way of explaining it because it's logical, and then there's a way of explaining it because it's above seichel. No, I'll go back to that later. Let's go into Zion. Now that Rebbe says we can add something, another layer, another step. You might ask a question. If I choose Hashem because of the essence, why do we even have to bring in the logic? True, it makes sense logically because our essence is connected. But if my essence is connected, I don't need the logic.
I lost you.
You lost. Or there's a logical way of understanding. And where do I see that Hashem is emes? Because of the fact that everything else is temporary and Hashem is eternal. Okay, let me go back to the chart. I'm sorry. One second. Number 3 is choosing Hashem because of the benefits, right?
Right.